afternoon. I'm Robert Keller, historian of the Scoliosis Research Society. It's the 17th of September, 1987. It's a special privilege today for both myself and the Research Society to have brought together 7 of the first 9 presidents of this organization to have a discussion about their roles in the Research Society and the development of the Scoliosis Research Society over its current 22 years of existence. As I noted, 7 of the first 9 presidents are here today. Dean McEwen, unfortunately, was not able to be with us, and Paul Harrington, the 4th president of the Society, died in 1980. I'd like first to introduce the presidents of the Society as they're here today. On my far left is Dr. Robert Winter from Minneapolis, Minnesota, who was the 5th president of the SRS. Next to him is Dr. Louis Goldstein from Rochester, New York, the 8th president. John Hall on my immediate left was the 2nd president, and John is from Boston, Massachusetts, formerly from Toronto. And on the far right is Dr. Kirkland Ashley from San Francisco, California, the 9th president of the SRS. Next to him is Dr. Kenton Leatherman from Louisville, Kentucky, the 6th president. Next to him, Dr. Edward Simmons from Toronto, and now Buffalo, New York, who was the 7th president, and on my immediate right, the 1st and founding president, Dr. John Moe from Minneapolis.
The first meeting was held in Minneapolis that year, and John Moe was elected first president, and there were 37 people, I think,
yes,
who actually responded to the invitations to come to the meeting. And as has already been mentioned earlier today, we spent practically the whole the first meeting trying to define terms. We couldn't even decide what scoliosis was to begin with, and then we went from there.
Bob, you had a lot to do with terminology at one time or another.
Yes, I just finished 2 or 3 years last year on that committee, and worked with it before. I think from a historical point of view, the committee now is a sort of quiet thing that nobody gets very excited about. But new members should realize that that was the hottest issue of the time at the beginning. That was monumentally important, and important because we really needed a common language. And people couldn't agree whether major curve and primary curve were the same thing or something different. And you have to remember there were different factions and groups involved at this point in time that had been brought together in one room, but it didn't mean they were all buddies at that point in time.
I came on that committee the 2nd year, and member Al Schmidt, I don't think he ever did get it on, wanted the half curve definition in, and I don't think we ever did really decide on that one. No.
Well, it finally crept in as the fractional curve or something like that. And there had to be some compromises made to get everybody.
It is interesting to think that as recently as the 60s, which is a while ago, but we would consider that sort of a modern era of medicine, that there was not a good vocabulary of the field.
Yeah. And remember, we had a hard time agreeing how to measure the curve. We weren't all in agreement about one measurement system over another. That was a big issue.
Well, I think I had a lot to do with establishing the method of measurement, because I had worked quite during Cobb's lifetime. I spent a lot of time with John Cobb, going to New York and working with him off and on. And the Cobb method of measurement was something that struck me as being much more feasible and accurate than the Ferguson method. While Ferguson was thought of very, very highly by John Cobb and by everyone, his method of measuring a curve was not as easily applied nor as accurately applied as the method of John Cobb.
When did the Research Society adopt the Cobb measurement early as their official measurement? Because I remember in Boston we were still using Ferguson measurements in the
It was rather
60s.
early done, I think, because people felt a commitment that to have a common language, we had to have a common measurement system, and that became a high priority issue.
Put some teeth into it, as I remember. If you wanted to give a paper, your report had to be in the Cobb measurement technique, or the paper would not be accepted by the program committee.
To really put this in context, in 1948, there was a motion from the floor at the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons meeting for a committee to be appointed to an attempt be made to clarify terminology and the method of treatment of scoliosis. And that just never happened, as a matter of fact. And on that committee were Blount, Cobb, Risser, von Lockham, and William Green as chairman. And they reported to the Academy in 1949, and to quote from their report, "Our deliberations have emphasized the need not only for clarification, but for more knowledge in this field. Diverse opinions were expressed by members of the committee upon almost all phases of scoliosis."
Yes.
So there were differences of opinion on which patients should have a fusion, at what age, the area of the spine to be fused. 2 points of relative agreement are interesting. Although fusion is the only known method of holding significant correction in a severe curve, it may be worse and more tragic to fuse a patient in the wrong area than not to fuse at all. And the terminology was discussed at length. There was no agreement in committee regarding terminology. Final statement of the report was the committee adjourned from its last meeting without bloodshed and with the members, on the surface at least, still friends.
That's wonderful. Lou, it was my good fortune to have been present at that meeting, because I was somewhat of an understudy with John Cobb, and I was searching for all the information I could get, and I thought that was really going to be a bonanza to have all of these chiefs there at one meeting. And I was the most disappointed of anyone at that meeting, when it only lasted about 15 minutes, when everyone agreed that they disagreed with one another. And I left that meeting wondering, how are we going to learn about scoliosis if this is the way our chiefs are talking?
The Scoliosis Research Society is a nonprofit professional organization made up of physicians and allied health personnel. Their primary focus is on providing continuing medical education for healthcare professionals and on funding and supporting research in spinal deformities. Please visit srs.org for further information.